Welcome to my channel Karma Romance Stories. Please like, subscribe for more videos.
My grandparents rarely talked about either. They talked about responsibility. They taught me that money could disappear quickly if you trusted the wrong people. They also taught me that an inheritance was not simply free money, it was something created by years of sacrifice. A few weeks after my graduation, my grandfather asked me to come to his study. He closed the door. My grandmother was already sitting there. I remember looking at both of them and immediately realizing something was wrong. My grandfather pointed toward a folder on his desk. He said, "Emily, we need you to understand something before we tell you what is inside this folder." I nodded. He continued, "Your parents believe this estate will eventually be divided between the family." I said I thought that was normal. My grandmother shook her head. "Normal is not always wise." Then she opened the folder. Inside were documents relating to their property investments, savings, and other assets. The total value was close to $3 million. I stared at the number. I had known they were comfortable. I had never understood how much they had actually built. My grandfather smiled and said something I never forgot. "We did not build this so our family could fight over it." He told me that over the years he had watched relatives argue about money, borrow money, and disappear when they were asked to repay it. He'd also watched people suddenly become extremely interested in him whenever they believed he might leave them something. Then he said the sentence that changed my life. "We trust you because you never asked us for anything." I did not know what to say. My grandmother explained that they wanted the estate protected through proper legal planning and that they wanted professional advice before any decisions were made. They wanted me involved because they believed I was responsible enough to protect their wishes. I asked, "Why me?" My grandfather looked at me and said, "Because when everyone else was asking what they could get from us, you were asking whether we had eaten dinner." That sentence stayed with me. Over the following months, I worked with the professionals they had chosen and learned more about trusts, beneficiaries, property ownership, and estate administration than I had ever imagined. I discovered that a trust is not simply a secret bank account. It is a legal arrangement with specific terms and responsibilities. The exact rules depend on the trust document and applicable state law. The IRS also recognizes trusts and estates as entities with specific tax and reporting rules. For example, the IRS explains that fiduciaries may have reporting responsibilities for trust and estate income and that beneficiaries can receive information about their distributive share through Schedule K1. I was not trying to hide money from anyone. I was trying to follow my grandparents' wishes. The estate included their house, investment accounts, and several pieces of property. The professionals helped establish the appropriate structure. My grandparents remained involved in the decisions that belonged to them. I was named to a role within the arrangement that required responsibility and careful record keeping. I learned something important during that process. Protecting an inheritance is not the same thing as stealing an inheritance. The trust existed because my grandparents wanted their wishes documented and managed according to the terms they created. And then something unexpected happened. My grandfather became seriously ill. For several weeks, I spent almost every evening at their house. My parents visited occasionally. My sister visited when she needed something. I never complained. I was too focused on my grandparents. One evening, my grandfather called me into his room. He looked tired. He reached for my hand. "Emily," he said, "if people suddenly become nice to you after we are gone, remember this moment." I asked him what he meant. He said, "Some people love you. Some people love what they think you can give them. And sometimes you do not know which one is which until money enters the room." I started crying. He squeezed my hand. "Do not fight them. Do not insult them. Do not explain everything. Just follow the documents." Those were his final instructions to me. A few months later, my grandfather died. My grandmother passed away the following year. The funeral was emotional. Everyone cried. Everyone hugged. For a while, I believed our family might actually become closer. I was wrong. The first call came 3 weeks later. It was my mother. She said, "Emily, we need to talk about the estate." I told her that everything was being handled according to the legal documents. She became irritated. She said, "Your grandfather would never have wanted you to control everything. The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice." I reminded her that the estate had been planned before his death. She replied that I was young and confused. Then my sister called. She did not even ask how I was feeling. She asked when the money would be transferred. I told her I could not simply transfer assets because she wanted them. She laughed. She said, "You're acting like some billionaire lawyer now." I said I was only following the instructions. She hung up. For months, I heard little from them. Then I graduated. That was when everything changed. My family suddenly became interested in me again. My mother called and congratulated me. My father sent me a message. My sister said we should have a family dinner. I thought maybe they had finally accepted what had happened. So I agreed, but they never showed up for dinner. Instead, they arrived at my house the following Saturday. My mother stepped out of the car smiling. My father walked behind her. My sister followed them, carrying a large handbag. They looked like they were coming to a celebration. My mother hugged me. "Congratulations, Emily." I smiled. "Thank you." Then she said we came to discuss the estate. My smile disappeared. My sister walked into the house without waiting to be invited. She sat down on the sofa. She said finally. I asked what she meant. She said, "Now that you have graduated, you can stop playing administrator and give everyone their share." I looked at my father. He avoided my eyes. My mother sat down beside my sister. She said, "Your grandparents wanted their family taken care of." I said they did. She smiled. "Exactly." I asked what they thought that meant. My sister opened her handbag and pulled out a sheet of paper. She said I made a list. A list of what? Things I think I should receive. She started reading. A portion of the house, a portion of the investment account, money for a new car, money for a business idea, and enough cash to pay off some debts. I stared at her. Then I looked at my mother. My mother said, "Your sister has been struggling." I asked, "What about me?" She looked confused. "You have the trust." My sister laughed. "You already have everything." That was when I understood. They did not see me as their daughter. They saw me as the person standing between them and $3 million. I quietly opened a drawer. Inside was a copy of the documents. I placed the folder on the table. I said, "Before anyone talks about dividing anything, we need to read what my grandparents actually instructed." My sister rolled her eyes. My father finally spoke. "There is no need for drama." I opened the folder. I did not raise my voice. I did not insult anyone. I simply read the relevant provisions. The estate had been structured according to my grandparents' wishes. Certain assets were intended for long-term preservation. Certain distributions had conditions. Some property was intended to remain within the trust, and there were professional responsibilities attached to administration. My sister interrupted me. She said, "This is ridiculous." My mother said, "Your grandparents were old and probably did not understand what they were signing." I looked directly at her. They worked with professionals. They reviewed the documents. They discussed their wishes repeatedly, and most importantly, they made their decisions while they were alive. The room became silent. Then my father said something that changed everything. "Your grandfather told me you would eventually give us our share." I asked him when he had discussed that with grandfather. He could not answer. My sister jumped in. "It does not matter. We are family." I said, "Family does matter. That is exactly why I am trying to protect what they left behind." She stood up. "The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice." "You think you're better than us?" I said, "No. I think our grandparents deserve to have their wishes respected." My mother began crying. She said, "We raised you." I reminded her that I was not refusing to help my family. I was refusing to break the legal structure my grandparents had created simply because everyone suddenly wanted cash. Then my sister said something I will never forget. "If you do not give me my money, I will take you to court." I looked at her. Then I said, "You can speak to the attorney." She froze. I had already arranged professional administration and record keeping. Every major decision had documentation. Every account was being handled properly. Every communication was saved. Not because I wanted revenge, because my grandfather had taught me that when money becomes emotional, the paperwork becomes your protection. My sister left the house furious. My mother followed her. My father stayed behind. For the first time, he looked less angry and more ashamed. He asked me one question. Did your grandfather really trust you that much? I said yes. He nodded. Then he whispered something I did not expect. I always thought he trusted you because you were the youngest. I said no. He trusted me because I was the only person who never asked him what I would inherit. My father looked down. He had no response. The next morning, something even more shocking happened. I received an email from the attorney involved in the estate administration. My family had contacted the office. They wanted information about the trust. The attorney responded according to the applicable rules and the documents. I was not going to reveal private legal details in front of my family. Instead, I let the proper process handle the situation. That decision saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Because emotional arguments disappear, documents remain. Weeks passed. My sister stopped speaking to me. My mother told relatives that I had stolen the family inheritance. That was painful. People who had known me since childhood started believing a story they had never investigated. One evening, I sat alone in my grandparents' old house. I looked around the study. The desk was still there. The chair was still there. My grandfather's old reading glasses were still sitting beside a stack of books. I opened the drawer. Inside was a handwritten note. It had my name on it. Emily, if you are reading this, we are probably gone. Do not measure your success by how much money you protect. Measure it by whether you protected your character. I cried for nearly an hour. Then I kept reading. The final line said, if they hate you because you respected our wishes, then let them hate you. You do not owe anyone betrayal just to prove that you love them. That sentence gave me peace. Months later, my family finally stopped demanding immediate money. The legal process continued. The estate remained protected according to the trust terms. Some assets were maintained. Some investments continued. Some distributions occurred according to the documents and applicable rules. And I began building my own life. The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice. She looked different. Older. Tired. She sat across from me. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Then she said, I owe you an apology. I did not expect it. She said we thought you were keeping the money from us. I asked why. She said, because your sister told us that trust was just something you created to control everything. I explained again that my grandparents had established their estate plan with professional assistance. She nodded. Then she asked if I hated her. I said no. I was hurt. There is a difference. She started crying. She told me that she had been angry because she believed she deserved something immediately. Then she said something I will always remember. I forgot that your grandparents were people before they were an inheritance. That was the moment I finally felt the anger leave me. I did not give her a check. I did not give her access to anything she was not entitled to receive. But I forgave her. Because forgiveness does not mean surrendering your boundaries. It means refusing to let someone else control your heart. My sister eventually apologized too. Not immediately. It took longer, but one evening she called. She said I was wrong. I asked what she meant. She said I treated you like an ATM? I laughed softly. Then she laughed too. For the first time in years, we talked without discussing money. We talked about our grandparents. We talked about childhood. We talked about how much we missed them. And I realized something. My grandparents never wanted the money to destroy us. They wanted the trust to protect more than property. They wanted it to protect the values they spent their lives building. Responsibility, patience, respect, and trust. That is why I never regretted what I did after graduation. I did not secretly steal a $3 million inheritance. I did not take something that belonged to my family. I followed the plan my grandparents had created. I protected their wishes. And when my family arrived smiling and demanding their share, I did not fight them. I simply opened the folder and let the truth speak for itself. The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice. Today I understand why my grandfather told me not to fight. He knew that when people become emotional about money, they stop listening. So I stopped arguing. I stopped defending myself. I stopped trying to convince everyone that I was a good person. I simply followed the documents and protected the trust my grandparents had created. The greatest inheritance they left me was not the estate. It was the lesson. Never betray someone just because betrayal would make your life easier. Never confuse love with entitlement. And never allow money to convince you that family loyalty means surrendering your principles. My family thought that $3 million was the inheritance. They were wrong. The real inheritance was the responsibility my grandparents trusted me to carry. And that was worth more than every dollar in the estate.